Changing taillights on an EVO is a pretty simple procedure, but you really do want to watch out for particularly this corner of the taillight so you don't end up chipping off a corner of it. And it's also just good to know what bulbs are all in this housing. So that's what this video is going to cover in a bit of detail today. We're going to walk you through all the steps to removing and installing a taillight, and also go into detail about some of the bulbs that are in this housing. So let's jump into it. So we'll start this off with some tools that you'll need. Pretty simple stuff: a Phillips screwdriver. If you have a smaller flathead screwdriver, that would be good to have. Some gloves, and then something soft to set the taillight on when you take it out of the car, something that won't scratch it. And the first step here is to pop our trunk. So we're going to open up our driver's side door, find our trunk latch, and pull that to release our trunk. Now there are 2 bolts on the innermost part of each taillight. So whatever side you're removing here, you'd have to remove the 2 screws that are holding those in place. Now those 2 screws were the main part holding this taillight in place. However, pulling out this taillight can be a bit tricky, and I want you to be careful because you don't want to chip the corner of your taillight. The outsidemost corner is one of the most common spots where I've seen these get chipped, and that's typically because these taillights are held in by a couple other spots here that I'm going to show in a second, that if you try to pull with too much force, typically where you just remove those screws, if you just kind of pried it one way, it could potentially chip that corner of the taillight that is up against the rear quarter panel. So in the ideal situation, you're able to just kind of grab onto this, pull it out as evenly as possible, try to pull it out straight without putting too much pressure on one side, and hopefully it just kind of pulls free. However, if your taillight hasn't been removed in a while and it just feels like it's not coming free, I'm going to go over some other additional steps here that you may need to do to get your taillight out without breaking it. So the first thing would be to remove some of your interior panels. A lot of EVOs have these gone. I don't really even have one to show you a proper way to remove them, but you would have to remove your interior panels, and then you can get a nice view here of the 3 different spots where this taillight would actually kind of protrude through. And just to show you exactly where those spots are here on the taillight, I'm going to point them out here too, so you know they're these protruding kind of metal pieces on either side, on the most outside-most part, and then on the inside-most part is just a plastic piece. But as we zoom in for a close-up here, again, your taillights might be different and people change them a lot, but they should probably have this plastic or rubber piece, I should say, that covers this plastic piece. And I'm just showing you this out of the car for example's sake, so you can get a better feel for what you would actually need to remove or what you're trying to free up here. So I use a pair of pliers here just to show you how you should be able to squeeze those and get them free or get them loose, because what you're looking at is really all that's left that's kind of holding that taillight in place. But if those are fanned out quite a bit or haven't been squeezed in a while, if it's a tight fit, those are what could hold your taillight in place and keep you from being able to remove it. And typically what I've seen is this middlemost one sticks in the car, and the outermost one actually stays in the taillight. So it could go either way, but you should be able to remove them from the car itself. And I'm going to show that here for example's sake. Again, you should be able to just kind of squeeze with the pliers. And in this case, I'm going to kind of push it away, and then it should kind of work it a little bit free. And you should be able to do that when the taillight is still actually in place. And it's something that maybe you just kind of want to work around a little bit to kind of work it free. Again, hopefully your taillight's just pulled right out and you don't have to go through any of this, and you honestly just hopefully skip this part and jumped ahead. But otherwise, if you are someone that has a better way of doing this, you found a good way to remove these, please leave a comment. Let me know what worked well for you. Alright, so now we're back to the point where you got your tail light free. It's held up basically just by this connector now, and this is where we're going to utilize our smaller flathead screwdriver. And what you really need to do for this main connector in the center of the light is just squeeze on the one end, and then it should pull off. That's in theory what it should do. Again, if it hasn't been removed in a long time, it might be pretty stuck. So we're actually going to cut to the other side of the taillight where I can get you a better view of this. When you are squeezing this tab, you can see this little piece here I'm pointing out that lifts up. If you're squeezing the tab and you don't see that piece lift up, you could use the little screwdriver like this to kind of pry it free. If you're really pulling on this and it's not coming free, it's most likely because when you're trying to squeeze that part, it's not releasing all the way. So if you are sure that that piece is kind of lifting up, then you should be able to utilize a flathead screwdriver of some sort to get it in there and then twist that flathead screwdriver, and that should help give you a little extra force to get that connector free. And now that we have a taillight out of the car, I want to show you something neat that I just realized too while doing this. There is some different markings on this taillight housing to show you when things are lined up and kind of locked in place. So this housing that holds the bulb in place is this gray piece, and there's a triangle on it pointing down to a triangle pointing up. And that's when it's locked in place. So that's kind of cool. There's a notch that's slid out of there too, but you basically just twist these. So you twist this one from the triangle part to the circle part, and that's when it would pull free. So, I mean, I always knew these were like a twist off, and I just never paid enough attention to it before that they actually had little markings on kind of where you would push this in and then twist and then remove it. But here's our old bulb. It is a 7443 that we're replacing. I'm going to cover all the bulbs in just a second, so hang tight with that. Another neat thing I learned is that the bulbs that go in a certain spot are actually labeled on the taillight. So this bulb, of course, is that 7443, and you can see on the housing right here, it does say 7443. This blinker one is a 23CP. It's not quite right. We'll come back to that in a second. A 168 for this bulb, and then this other bulb here is a 7440. But I really wanted to give everyone a good visual of what bulbs go where from the outside of the car, so that's what we're going to do here. And we'll start from the outermost part of the taillights and the bulb we're changing today, the 7443, which is a brake light slash taillight. That is a dual filament bulb. And next we're going to move inward to the one bulb that kind of is different than all the rest. This miniature bulb is a 168 taillight bulb. And our reverse lights are a 7440 single filament. And finally, our blinker lights, and I feel like this may have just been like an updated naming of the bulbing convention or something. I don't know exactly, but the 23CP, when I just kind of Google it, did not actually come back with anything that was a 23CP. I think the equivalent here is a 7440A, which is the amber colored 7440 single element bulb. I will also say I do have a set of JDM taillights that have the orange blinkers already are kind of orange in the lens itself, not the bulb. And those JDM lights did come with the 7440 bulb, just the clear one, not the amber one, because again, the taillights themselves have this orange color already over them. So I do know that the 7440 bulb will work in this 23CP spot. But it would still be good to have some more information on the subject if anyone else knows more about it. And now we'll move on to installing our new bulb. And one important thing you kind of want to do here is have some gloves. I was not wearing gloves when I pulled the old bulb because there was an old bulb that I was replacing anyway. But you do actually want to wear gloves or something to prevent any oil from your hand on getting on the bulbs, because as far as I understand, the bulbs, you know, they will get hot, and if there's oil on them, it sounds like then they could be even hotter, or it could just do something to damage the bulbs. But honestly, if you happen to already touch this bulb with your hands, it's probably still going to work fine for a while. It just might die a little bit sooner. But if you're watching this video and haven't done this job yet, yes, please utilize some sort of glove or something that would help prevent you from transferring any oil or anything like that to the bulb. And then this bulb really does just push in place. You should kind of hear it snap in place, but you should be able to just push it in and you should be all set to go. And again, to reinstall, like we talked about before, there is that kind of circle mark that you would kind of push it in on first and then twist it to the triangle mark. So when those triangle marks line up, you can see that it's locked in place. Again, very simple twisting mechanism, but it's kind of neat that they all kind of have that. There's that slot that's notched out. You should be able to line up, where you push it in and then twist it to where it locks in place. Here's the 168 bulb, same thing, just to show you guys that, the triangles point to each other, line up, and then when it's free, it's lined up towards the circle. All right, so you've changed whatever bulb wasn't quite working right, and now it's as simple as plugging that connector back in, I should say. So you'll plug that back in, and then a lot like the points we pointed out to removing this taillight without breaking it, you're going to look at these protruding spots, and hopefully you do have these rubber pieces. If you know where to find these rubber pieces, please let me know, because if you lose them, I don't know how you could find them to order them or anything. But realistically, now you're just lining up all 3 of those spots and pushing it back in place. It really shouldn't take too much force, and if you did get kind of tricked up, like taking it out and you removed your interior pieces, you should be able to kind of double check too from the inside that things look like they're lined up like they should when you push this in. And one of the final steps is just putting those screws back in place. So there shouldn't be anything holding those up. They should line right up in place, and you should be able to screw those screws in and your taillight will be held in. And of course, test it, make sure everything works before you start driving down the road. And luckily, this did fix the issue I had with the one filament of my bulb basically not working. And that's it. You should be able to close your trunk when you're done. You've heard me say it before, and you'll probably hear me say it again, but I'm just a guy on YouTube documenting what I do, learning as I go, as we all are. So there is a chance I did something wrong in this video, and I cannot easily update it. So please check the comment section. If there are any updates, they will be probably right in the comments or maybe the video description itself. Please feel free to correct me if you think I did anything wrong, or if you have a better solution so we can just help everybody out, so people watching this can get the job done and get it done right. And as always, this is Paul from Boosted Film saying thanks so much for watching.